Well, hello there, everyone. You here talk about right here, seeing for the biomaster's degree, for Pell Grant, and basically that I went and put together right here is like a a sketch right here, right here using a document on Illustrator. But anyway, this actually right here is like actually a painting right here. Is I went ahead and I see sketches like the outlines right here, using the blog brush as well as the paintbrush. And then I went ahead and clue right here are some like these math factors. And I know that I'm sure most of us here have already seen a number of postings if it's going to be about study for the more, and as well as college funds, and as well as difference between grants and loans, stuff like that. But this one right here is talking about, it's like yeah, that kids that ever since they were about maybe 8, maybe 10 years old, about their parents, if they if they would have had any kind of college funds. And I know that whenever kids, whenever they grow up and they're thinking about that they want to be a fighter pilot, or maybe a mechanical engineer, or if it's a doctor, nurse, a pediatrician, pharmacist, or anything like that. And then on your hand, you're working on a construction site, but on your hand, that seems like some of these, degrees just to get in that work field is like, you're like one to where not, maybe not all of them would require a college degree. If anything, up to at least maybe 10 or 12 years experience, or if you know of a family member or friend that's willing to help the person out. But on your hand, that you see right here is like to say for biomaster's, and as well as the Pell Grant. And basically that yeah, that some of this stuff, it seems like it either comes from the state or from the federal, from the IRS, but that on your hand too, as well as for financial aid. But I would provide right here some information right here of like for $1 trillion. And I know that like this right here, I'm like, I think about for a million. I think yeah, this which I think it would be like for for 0 0, but for whatever reason, I keep thinking, yeah, if that's a million or if a trillion, but I'm trying to work right here if this is for a trillion. But anyway, this right here will be like for 100,000 right here. So whenever we're young, we may think necessarily to where they have right here is like a, for extra credit, for graduation. And this right here will be like an example right here of whenever I first started, whenever I first started attending classes, and then from whenever I graduated. So this will be like another example right here of like for 20 years later. But then on the other hand, that whenever you started, that you're like thinking about this to where that a lot of that money that it's on the cost. So I used that 1988 right here as an example right here, for 1988, and this right here would be a year from that knowing about from whenever I would start going to school, going to college, and yeah, that a lot of times that I a lot of times talked about going to college, going back to school, mainly because that yeah, that I want to go ahead and aim for the best education, like I mentioned before. But then on your hand, that really is there something more about this higher education besides the cost of it? And this is right here, like these illustration pictures I went ahead and put together right here, and you can see right here talk about for trillion as well as for a biomaster's degree for the Pell Grant. So now these right here are some ideas about maybe for like a student ID, or just an idea for like I don't know if we want to call it a puzzle piece, but like for anything about plans, and about anything that that was coming to your mind, anything that you want to write about, maybe on a journal, about if you want to go ahead and run a math class, like whenever you were in math class, and just thinking about as to where that a lot of times that your frustrations, that you got frustrated whenever math got to be so complicated. But let's just say that with math though, is that if you could maybe pick maybe about 4 or 5 math problems to solve within about half an hour, and let's just say that if you want to see about study about the biggest number, and a lot of times this is how I usually help is to where it helps me to understand a little bit more about math, is to where that sometimes that whenever I was in math class those years ago, that I remember I wanted to know what 100 times 100 was. So like for 10,000, or if it's going to be 500 times the 500, and if like that would be like if I 500 times 500 is like 20,000, something like that. But anyway, But if we were to actually do the math and subtraction, long division, and stuff like that, and try to figure out a few of these math problems, and we're like one to where I've heard that before, to where that you can't print your own money. But on the other hand, too, let's just say this was like an idea for like any mathematical type problems that we want to solve in our do in our head or anything like that. Take notes of it. Have them memorized and knowing about for how much is left after this is taken away and which one is more. But I'll show right here are some math like a math problem right here is that, and I know that anybody like a math teacher that may say that, I'm trying to understand here what this is all about, Mr. Matthew, because yeah, at this was right here, these right here will be like math problems right here, and that they may have it to where that this math problem right here, we have different names right here for like which one's the bound rounder and which one is the subtraction rounder. So this right here will be like, say, like example of basic math. This right here will be a example of like if the college fund was about $100,000. So I went ahead and used $100,000 because I know that most colleges out there that cost up to at least $6,000 or $7,000 a semester. So let's just say on average to where that that a lot of times students will probably say that a college fund, if it's supposed to be saved within about the 12 or 13 years before you actually start college, and you're like Warren, to where should the savings go, should it increase, should the savings get bigger? But then sometimes they may say that including interest and as well as for how much for prices that went up from over the years, from the past 15 years or so. So we may think that's no excuse, but let's just say that that anybody that more likely may say that the way I think about it is that really that if you really want to see a change or you want to do something about it, it seems like the answer is usually to where that you'll go ahead and try to do it yourself. But this right here, I would maybe recommend is maybe that to check out more information about it, because we may think that yeah, you may get mad about a college fund that's not there. How are you going to be able to pay for this? But let's just say at the college fund that anybody that may think that there is no $100,000 in college funds, at least as of right now, you multiply that times 20. There is no $40,000 in college funds. 7 years later, this could maybe be a factor, such as this amount of money could be on hand to where you may have that kind of money within 7 years later. But in knowing about that college expense more likely could already be paid for. So it seems like to where that it goes by the question to where why is it that this amount of money could maybe appear in our pocketbooks within 5 years from now. So we may think about we may have had we had to pay the bill at one time, but then 5 years later, or 7 years later, 8 years later, then it's like the bill's already paid for. And sometimes if they say 7 years later, it's possible that the bill could already be paid for, and then we had this amount of money. So we're like Warren to where that, yeah, this amount of money could have gone to maybe a college fund, could have gone to maybe paying off a student loan, but then on their hand, that maybe either the bill's already paid for. And I'm sure any student that may say, no, the bill's not paid for. You still got about maybe $3,000 left you're still working on. So this right here would be like, for anything about working out the mathematical type of situations right here. So, while if this was right here was an example of my homework right here, if I were be in my room, working or in my study desk, at some time working on these math problems here and thinking about it, that I'm sure any teachers that may say that we're trying to get to understanding, Mr. McGuire, that about what you're trying to explain here. And the way I think about it though is like really I did not explain. I just only have maybe some details right here. It's like for 44 times 5, and then the subtraction and then the additional symbol, and then right here for 12, that's for midnight. To worry about every time the clock that strikes midnight, more likely that there will be about maybe 20% of the bill that's going to get paid. So whenever we think about this, is that for 14,800 minutes at midnight. So we may think it's to where that $100,000, yeah, that's about, that would probably be about maybe 5 years full paid for college, about 40,000. So as like say a birthday present to where that we're like maybe thinking about is to where that anything related to mathematics is that that yeah points and maybe credit hours and maybe grants that we may be thinking about as to where that yeah that may have to take out a student loan and as well as figuring out from when it, from after interest is included and as well as long subtraction. So it seems like even though if I may have had planned to where I plan to go ahead and do like a mathematical type, fraction factor like this, and then after about maybe 3 weeks, it seems like something's going to change. So we're like wondering to anybody that may say that, yeah, that let's just say if you use 44, you work with $44 or $50, and then let's just say that if you're able to come up with an additional $10.50 or something like that within 3 weeks. So it seems like to where that well, you may have heard that story before to where whenever you were a kid, you want to save up your money. You want to save up your money or maybe you set aside, maybe for, a candy bar or maybe for a toy or something like that. But let's just say for like, for like a college fund or maybe for a tuition that back in 1988, that I'm sure that not too many of us even knew what $1 trillion was, maybe not even $100,000. So whenever we think about this, the 20 years or so, for students who try to buy master's degrees, what I call it, but you have right here is like whenever a student graduates, that we're like warrantor that, this amount of money may not have existed at the beginning. You know what it was, and knowing about, yeah, that, and let's just say the story goes by as to where that you had it the whole time, you had it for the past 3 years, but in any research done about it, but then it seems like to where it's all about studying, huh? It's like you may not know what you have until all of a sudden that, oh yeah, the bill's almost paid for, or the bill's already been paid for. It's been paid for a long time ago. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about any amount of money that came maybe from a tax return or anything like that, but it's well for financial aid. But let's just say that we may wonder to where that, put the red X, was red X basically, blue X, but X more likely may stand for 10, and like you say, algebra readings, but let's just say if the college fund was $1, and I'm sure even with the kids, the cousins, grandkids, whoever, that for their future payment, for their college fund, they may warrant to where $100,000 seems like a lot of money to where what they need, but still, when it comes to meals and books and supplies and your rent and stuff like that, it all adds up. But as of right now, if anything, that we're only talking about maybe 22,000 is what you really need just to pay for all that. But let's just say maybe by the year 2025 that it could go up. Things could go up in price too, to where it could go up to maybe 35,000. It could go up to about 40,000. So this price mark right here could be in about 20 years from now. 20 years from now, a cost of the semester could also be as to where it's about $9,000, and it could have to, ring up to about $10,000 a semester. So we're talking about up to $5,000 it is per quarter. So think about it like for what you're being charged for, just to go to school for higher education. And this could also be like maybe for buying a car. But if we were to be doing the math right here, these seems to be these money factor seems to be like the way I wrote this right here for 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 0, 0. These right here will be like the way that I would have done the math a long time ago. It's like maybe not as neat, but on your head to the way we think about it is to where from 14,800 minutes that at that and whenever the clock that reaches to midnight, that we may think as to where 14,000 minutes more likely that more likely includes up to 3 years, and I think I may have mentioned before up to 13,000 minutes that more likely equals to about at least 3 years. Maybe only 14 months, but if we were to have a credit card and we would actually be working this, then more likely that chances are that, yeah, that whenever you schedule a payment, that I don't think that they really need to know about how many minutes and how many hours it's going to take for you to pay it off. More likely, they want to know about schedule of time, schedule of payment. We want to know about, payment of 44, 80, and then a maximum and a minimum, price, that type of stuff. So that's just the way that I think about it, is to where working the math right here, and we're like Warren, to where that, any amount of money that you might collect later on, and at this spot, right here, would be like, say, for 50, this could be, 50%, but then let's just say 5 years from now, if it's going to be like, say, master's degree. For the master's degree, that this is pretty much how it's paid for. It's like if it's going to be a Pell grant or any type of a grant, that more likely they say that at the beginning you didn't know what that was. You're like Warren, to where what grant? What there never was. But since I would say maybe since the year of 1994 and 1995, I kept thinking about this, to where go to college. And anybody that may say, whenever you're in the fifth grade, that you may be talking about going to college, and maybe about going to camp or with a few friends or anything like that. Maybe you want to run your own business one of these days. So you're like thinking about this. A lot of the stuff is all about the future, right? But then knowing about the main focus as well is that anybody say, well, not only talk about maybe the plans about, to collect $100,000 or to collect $1 trillion. And anybody more likely says that, I don't think anybody, nobody, has $1 trillion in their pocketbook as of today, except maybe the millionaires. But on the other hand, maybe not even there, but let's just say on average, to where that, anything that if it's really about is to where that we can maybe say is to where I plan to maybe to collect, $100,000 within the 5 years. 5 years later, there could be a difference. But let's just say that, you're like Warren, to where you may be surprised at about how much we're willing, you're able to collect, and what we're able to solve within 5 years or maybe within a year. And I'm sure anybody probably say, you may be surprised what happens in 6 months. In 6 months to a year, you may be surprised about how much money that was collected and how much money that was used to pay off, any student loans. And anybody that may warrant to where that the question goes by is to where that anything that is related to for credit scores, that would this increase your credit, to where if there's like a credit check in the background, to where anybody that if you're trying to apply for maybe a visa or for a credit card or anything like that, or anything else, that when we pay our bills, is this true, to where that it would improve your credit? Which I'm assuming that it might improve it just a little bit. If you're going to be on time with your payments for the for the 5 months straight, 5 months in a row, if you're going to be on time with your payments, then more likely that might improve it. I would say at least by 3%. Maybe not by 7, but at least by 3%. So that which that might have anybody that may think, it may not be promised, but on the other hand, if you're going to be on time with your payments for the first 5 months, that if it's going to be a $50 or whatever amount that's owed, working out payments, then more likely that possibly could improve, the credit score. So if anybody knows about if you have good credit, and then maybe that that means that to where you can maybe do a few other things that you can maybe get another loan, or if you want to go ahead and buy something. So they say that, yep, you heard that before, don't spend all in one place. But on the other hand, that it's like, think about it, to where it seems like there's always going to be homework to do. There's always going to be counting and planning, to where that how the budget, how to spend it correctly. But then on the other hand, that you're like Warren, to where how to keep it stabilized, to where that everything's all caught up, everything, things are paid for. So when we do the math right here, it seems like it's all about is to where the understanding about how much is in the account, as well as for $100,000, is that for college funds, and as well as for college education, as well as for the future. So a lot of the stuff that we may have thought about from the past 15 years, that I keep thinking about, is to where that I may not known necessarily to where what $100,000 was or what $40,000 was, because I'm like, yeah, during that time that go out and buy a video game or something like that, and anybody that may say that anything that you're like, if you want to go ahead and solve a few math problems like fractions, and I know like fractions that multiplication tables and those type of mathematical problems. So anybody that may wonder to are you going to write any numbers in particular? I'm like, well, I don't think I've already wrote. Plus I'm already over 20 minutes here. But anyway, so there you are. Everybody, your best of for anybody who's a college student. I'm like, for the future, talking about for the paying help to pay off their expenses and knowing about understanding about for credits as well as for understanding about the bimesters. Talk about the future of education. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.